Final Fantasy XIV can be surprisingly dark. While it's known for being somewhat dull during significant portions of A Realm Reborn, it also has some of the most gut-wrenching and stressful moments I've ever experienced in an MMO. All of this escalates the more you play through the expansions. A Realm Reborn definitely has some upsetting situations if you read all of the dialogue close enough. Heavensward is all kinds of messed up. Stormblood makes you question humanity. Shadowbringers brings you to the brink of a world that seems beyond salvaging. And Endwalker is one of the most depressing experiences I've ever played through. In this video, I wanted to talk about some of the moments where I found it to be so surprisingly messed up. Naturally, this video will contain spoilers from post A Realm Reborn, Shadowbringers, and Endwalker, so don't say you haven't been warned. There are a few smaller moments that I'm going to talk about, but I wanted to kick things off with the biggest one of them all, from Endwalker, the Dead Ends dungeon.
So you are finally here, in this place between death and rebirth, where life knows no dawn. Come then, follow me down into the darkest depths of despair.
I'm honestly thankful that I was in a pretty good headspace when I first played Endwalker because it's so incredibly bleak and distressing at times. I'll spare the context around why you're experiencing what you're experiencing in the Dead Ends. But ultimately, the dungeon tells the story of 3 different worlds, all of which have ended up in unimaginably dismal situations. The first of which is a world suffering from pestilence, as Medion explains.
Until they curse not the illness, but their fellow corrupted. Those who lived and festered. Those who died and decayed. And the very last of them wished they had never been born at all.
Most folks don't bother to read the lore entries that are scattered around dungeons, especially this one, but they give you some great context. You see, what is happening in all of these is Medion arrives and asks, what meaning does life hold? For what do you strive? And these are the answers she got. From the first world, they responded, why do you ask such a question? Do you not see the plague and pestilence that consumes us? Ours is a world of rancid blood and rotting flesh, where death is the only remedy to suffering. There is no meaning to be found in such misery. But it was not always thus. Beneath the waves we knew only peace and plenty. We wanted for naught, yet craved for more, that our progeny might someday flourish as we never could. Eventually we ventured to the lands above, bearing flame and iron, toppling any who dared to oppose our might. The world was ours for the taking. Each of these also has a second note which provides additional context. This one reads, the world is not the boundless paradise we were promised. Our population quickly outstripped the habitable land, while seas we thought would shine forever blue ran dry, spoiled in forging the tools of our conquest. Cramped homes turned to squalor, and then came the sickness, our undoing and the final blessing this star has to offer. We are no longer the fools we once were. Wheresoever life goes, death will follow. Indeed, existence is but the most painful path unto nothingness, and the wise embrace their obliteration wholeheartedly. Not happy with just that, we move on with Medion to another star, one that had completely eradicated any and all disease.
In a faraway place, a brilliant star eradicated disease. before destroying the self-same lives it had saved. Its people sought ever greater freedoms no matter the cost. They tried to buy peace with fire and steel. And when one asked, "What is the point?" there were none left to answer.
Again, Medion arrives, asks the same question. Their response? That otherworldly beings should first grace us with their presence is a sign. Indeed, they understand that we, the global community, are possessed of the wisdom and compassion needed to guide this star back to the path of righteousness. Yet the freedom fighters dare to undermine us, inviting chaos to disrupt the order we labored so hard to build. They have forgotten the history of this star and its once myriad nations, the wars waged, the countless lives lost. They must be brought to heel, the world united under a single standard, no matter the cost. In short, this world was fine until Medion arrived and started asking questions. Once she does, what happens? Their second note. We constructed the Peacekeeper, the pinnacle of engineering and technology. This mighty war machine was designed to rid us of the freedom fighters, as well as any other potential threats to the peace we have so long pined for. Its artificial intelligence ensures that this singular function is carried out with cold and calculated precision. Indeed, the 10,000 Peacekeeper units we created have now routed every threat to peace, including us. All that remains is to stand and fight. The final star is one where world peace had been achieved. Humanity longed for nothing. Their every needs met. Everything is perfect. This is the one that finally sent Medion over the edge.
Farther still existed a star without strife. Where none remembered life's trials or its joys. What its people had gained from ease, they lost at. So they created the kindest, most gentle of beasts. Its steps were light, and its gift was as painless as it was beautiful. Bathed in its golden glow, they all slept happily ever after.
When she arrived, she asked again. The first note. A curious traveler visited our star, a bird which proffered these questions. What meaning does life hold? For what do you strive? I could find no satisfactory answers, only bittersweet memories of an age-long past. There was a time when we were lesser, and in our nescience sought purpose, struggled to justify life's worth. That was, of course, before we achieved perfection. Now, condemned to a paradise, we understand the fatuity of existence. Like the fledglings we once were, the poor bird could not accept the truth. It asked us again and again, hoping perhaps our answer might change. Their second answer. There was a time when we yearned to explore the heavens, found purpose in the hope of unveiling life's mysteries. A dream shattered when we reached enlightenment and found it empty. There was a time when we believed in our legacy, thought ourselves marking a worthy path our successors might follow. Efforts rendered futile when we discovered the keys to paradise and immortality. As individuals, we struggled to know what was right. Yet in today's perfect unity, there is naught left to question. We are infinity, constricted by the finite, but no more. R'Allah shall grant us the mercy of annihilation. It's all incredibly depressing. A world where people have everything but push for too much and annihilate themselves. A world where maintaining peace is so important that they create machines to remove all strife, igniting global extinction. In a world where everything has gone right, everyone is happy, no one suffers, no one longs for anything, they're immortal. But they become so numb to everything that all they long for is death. It's well and truly rough to play through when you aren't in a great mental headspace, like I said. For something a little less serious, I think of the very first time Final Fantasy XIV surprised me. Way back during the quests after A Realm Reborn. You know the parts I'm talking about. When the queen is killed, the crown is overthrown by the merchants, and the Crystal Braves turn on Alphino and leave the Scions in disarray. The whole thing was the first time I realized that this MMO doesn't mess around. All of it topped off with Raban having an entire arm lopped off, which then gets launched across the room and rolls across the table. It's not super gory or anything, but the simple fact that someone's entire arm was chopped off during a cutscene in a T-rated game was surprising. And it's the first time the game gets real fast. Another shock happens early on in Shadowbringers. I remember when I first started playing the expansion and had the slow realization that light wasn't good just because the dark was bad in our specific situation. Too much of either is inherently a problem. Nothing exemplifies this more than the scene where you encounter Alize trying to save people from a Light Warden, only to find her getting stabbed. That transformation sequence, while visually disturbing, is also mentally unsettling. The idea that somewhere inside that new monstrosity there remains at least a small amount of consciousness of the original being, now forever trapped inside, forced to turn against her own kind and fight for the obliteration of the human race. The final one I want to talk about today is the Sorrow of Werlyt questline, which centers around Gaius and the Garleans. It tells the story of a young group of Aura orphans who join the Garleans after being conquered by the Garlean Empire. These kids dedicate their entire lives to the service of the Empire in hopes of becoming strong to protect people like themselves from what happened to them, getting orphaned. Instead, we learn that they've been used and abused since Gaius, their father figure, quote-unquote, died. We know he didn't die. But in short, we very quickly discover that the Empire has developed new weapons after we defeated the Ultima weapon that Gaius himself was piloting. And these new weapons are incredibly powerful, so naturally we're forced to try and stop them. But these new weapons have a very high cost. Their ultra-powerful Oversoul mode uses the pilot as a kind of human battery to push it to even higher limits, make it even more powerful. But the more power it needs, the more it drains from the pilot in an excruciating manner, refusing to let the pilot die until every drop of aether is drained from their body. This happens over and over again as you fight the subsequent weapons, helpless but to watch these children, now grown, sacrifice themselves for an awful empire that views them as lesser than human. It's really hard to watch. Valens van Barrow, the Garlean behind all of this, compares the aura to cattle when talking about spilled milk, saying, "This particular variety comes from a rare breed of cow, you know. Only 100 of them in existence and pampered every day of their lives. Yes, they are quite valuable. Until their milk dries up, that is. When it does, they are sent to the slaughterhouse like all the rest, for that is their lot in life, to be discarded once they have served their purpose." I'm not sure how to wrap this video up after all of that. The game can be quite dark at times. Do you think I left out any moments? There were a few I thought about covering, like the whole deal with Valkyrie and Gabu and his parents, but the video is getting too long as it is. Again, expect spoilers in the comments below, but I would love to hear about the messed up moments that affected you the most. In the meantime, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, there's a Patreon linked in the description below. For now though, I think that's it. I'll see you next time.